All righty, here we are. Happy Thursday, everyone. How's everybody doing today?
It's fantastic. How are you, Anders?
Doing real well. We got Barcelona coming up. There's
Yeah.
nothing not to love about that. That's going to be. We got some really good programming for our friends out in EMEA. Going to have looking at over 100 breakout sessions, including our executive sessions. Got some hands-on labs going on, expert bar going on. Plus, of course, what's special about when we do Explore in Barcelona is we get the geo parties for our customers and partners, which is fantastic as well. So looking forward to that. The content catalog on that is open now, so anybody who is going can actually go in and start registering for your sessions, and be sure to, because it's looking like a lot of these are close to booked up right now. So get on the waiting list, and if we get enough of you on the waiting list, we can actually move those into bigger rooms so that everybody can see what we've got going on. Actually, a little, it sounds weird, but I'm super excited about how full some of these sessions are already. It's super good.
Yeah, that's good to see.
And I know neither of you are going this year. You're both here holding down the fort.
Yeah, I'm missing. I had to pass it up, but I'm looking forward to hearing a lot of the announcements that are going to happen there. So yeah, at least there's that.
Well, and we're super glad to have you here today, because that's kind of the meat and taters of why we're here. And in fact, why we're here is unlocking the hidden value of VMware vSphere Foundation. With us today, we've got Jodi Shely with the Americas Channel Field CTO, and Brock Peterson, VCF Operations and Automation Architect. And then also in the Q&A, who do we have with us here in Q&A? Mike Rose. Mike Rose is here to help with some answering some of the questions we have online. So be sure, if you do have questions, go ahead and ask them in the Q&A panel, and we'll get to those. And with that, I think we're pretty much ready to rock and roll here.
All right. Well, thank you, Anders. Thank you very much. Again, I'm happy to be here today, and thank you for attending. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to our session today, and hopefully have some live Q&A coming towards the end, as well as some live demos that are going to happen as well with Brock. And we'll just give a couple of announcements up front. Sorry about the cameras; they're not working today, so our apologies that we don't get to see you face to face, or at least on video. And then in addition to that, at the materials section at the bottom, we did include some PDFs. We have a customer cheat sheet and a customer data sheet that you can download from the materials section. So with that being said, Brock, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here, Shelley. So I am Brock Peterson, one of the VCF operations and automation architects. So the folks kind of supporting the old ARIA, the old vRealize stuff. So thanks for the invite. Good conversation going today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to flash up the agenda here. I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes or so, and then I'm going to hand it over to Brock, and we're going to do a live demo. And we again have Mike. Thank you so much for helping answer questions, and feel free to put them in there. And then if you want to ask live later, you can do that as well, and we can answer them there. So again, just welcome to the session, and thank you so much for joining us today. The overarching goal for this session really is to help our customers get a deeper understanding of the VMware vSphere Foundation platform, and really discover how to leverage the optimization opportunities within the platform itself. So we'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing industry trends. Then we'll also talk about some of the key areas that we want to highlight in the VMware vSphere platform, but also really walk you through how to get value out of leveraging VCF operations and VCF operations for logs. So what we're really seeing, kind of want to talk about the shift in priorities right now. So we've been working on simplification of our platform for a while, as you can tell, and also watching the current trends. But we know that the workloads, they're really growing everywhere, and that there's a shift amongst the growing application stack. So while we're witnessing this shift away from the public cloud-centric approach, we're really seeing them move back to private cloud. We have all these different metrics and percentages on the right-hand screen, but the bottom line is the cloud market really is experiencing this dynamic transformation. Yet again, there's concerns around data sovereignty. There's also a need or control really to have over your IT infrastructure. So we want to put an emphasis today on how to understand the value of the platform, the adoption. So if you're a customer that has just vSphere, or you're a customer that has vSphere with vSAN and or other VMware products, and you're looking at the upshift to VMware vSphere Foundation, and you really want to understand the value of the platform. We hope that you get a takeaway today, either get the questions answered that you've been wanting to know about, or also understand and get a demo walking through the platform itself today. So as we talk about all this complexity, we know that the organizations, they have a huge enemy of execution, and it's all around operations. It's stifling the productivity. It's also increasing costs, right? So organizations are really talking about cloud costs, why their cloud costs are exceeding the budget, why there's cyber threats, there's sustainability, but there's also the mission really is to solve the complexity around standardizing on a consistent infrastructure stack that really extends from the data center to the edge to the cloud. So as we talk about the enemy of execution, and this is kind of where we want to introduce a couple of questions as well. We want to talk about and help you understand questions that we've been hearing in the industry and the trends around innovation, modernization, cloud costs, cyber threat, and of course, sustainability. We want to understand where those inconsistencies are, how we can remove those barriers, and also understand if we can help you understand how to look at all these different areas within the platform and really become successful and optimize your VMware platform. Brock, did you want to, Anders, do you want to cue the first poll? Thank you. And again, feel free to ask questions as we go along. As we're talking about today's needs, we really want our understanding that we have to help our customers modernize their solutions. So there's requirements to transform the current infrastructure and also support the modern workloads, but we have to make sure that we're optimizing the IT infrastructure. So we looked at these 4 key areas: intelligent operations management, high-performing infrastructure. We have to make sure that we're helping the developers still have a friendly platform, but also we can't forget about security and compliance. We want to understand all of the pillars that are embedded with the VMware vSphere Foundation platform today. So let's talk about the vSphere Foundation platform. If you haven't heard about the platform and what it is, we want to help you understand what the platform is, what's encompassed in the platform, and then how to optimize. Anything to add there, Brock?
Nope, good stuff there. I'm just actually answering some questions in the Q&A.
That's perfect.
Alrighty.
So
and we've been running our poll here for just a little under a minute, and it looks like we've got some good results with about 66% voting in. About 58% have never used ARIA operations. 17% is rarely. 22% is are intermediate users, and 3% are advanced users. So that's actually some really good numbers. Get an idea of who's in our audience, and looks like we've got some room to move on getting people plugged in.
absolutely, that really helps too. And with such a big audience today, I would have never guessed that over half the audience has never used VCF Operations, which is now known as previously ARIA Operations. We know the name changes. We're working on that, but it's really helpful. That's why we want you to understand the value of the platform today. So taking the enterprise workloads and understanding that entire engine, right? Understanding what VMware vSphere Foundation has, the value of the actual platform, and we're calling it a platform because it's encompassing of operations and analytics. But today we're going to hit on these 4 key areas with VCF Operations and VCF Operations for logs. And Brock is going to give us a live demo on that here just shortly.
Yeah, so Jodi, just a couple things to highlight back there. And I am going to give a demo on operations as well as operations for logs. But there was a good question in the thread, and I answered it. But just so everybody's kind of on the same page, what's included in VMware vSphere Foundation, and you might talk about it on this slide, 2 things as it relates to what was formerly called ARIA. So VCF or ARIA Operations Advanced is included, as well as Operations for Logs, which is formerly VRLI, which only has 1 version. So I clarified that in the question and answer, but I thought it would be probably a question across the board, so I wanted to bring it up.
No, that's absolutely, yeah. We actually probably could have included a slide that had the different feature functionality, and we can definitely probably do a better job of helping you understand feature functionality and capability delineation. So if you have any questions, let us know. And Not to be put him out there, but Brock is very well fluent in the management packs as well. So if you have questions about any of the management pack opportunities or add-ons that you can leverage when you're talking about VCF operations, just feel free to ask those questions as well. So the platform itself, we have, of course, the enterprise workload engine, which is known as vSphere with compute and storage, right? And then what we've done is we've brought in VCF operations as well as VCF operations for logs, and then made that, your fully encompassed private cloud. Along with that, you have the opportunity to purchase add-ons, which, vSAN for VMware vSphere Foundation is by the gig. So you get 100 free gigabits included with the uplift to VMware vSphere Foundation. But you also have the opportunity to purchase more storage as well. And then, of course, the load balancer and then the live recovery add-ons as well. So the goal of this fully encompassed private cloud is to really help you understand how to accelerate your innovation, ensure that you're understanding the modernization of the workloads, whether those are private AI workloads, containerized workloads, the standard 3-tier application workloads, etc. Understanding really what you're doing with cost management, putting in your own cost information, cost drivers, and doing cost analysis on your environment. We want to make sure that we're not really touting so much saying you're going to have cloud savings, but more cloud avoidance. So we'll talk more about that. And then also the resiliency and the sustainability factors as well.
Yeah, Jodi, a couple points before we kind of move on here, and another really good question from Greg. So the question was, does this replace Skyline? And the short answer is yes. So in Operations 8.18, we've introduced a new feature, or I call it a blade, over on the left-hand side called Diagnostics. And I'll show this later on in the demo, but Diagnostics allows you to see things like security advisories, security findings related to VMSAs or various log signatures or what have you. And this is our first attempt at the replacement for Skyline. So it's not, we don't have feature parity today. We will, and I'll talk a little bit about how we're going to content, new log signatures, et cetera, on kind of a timeline, right? Because this is an on-prem solution, not a SaaS one, so we can't add new VMSAs overnight. But good question, Greg. Thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point with the Skyline. So of course it recently went end of life, but they are embedding a lot of the feature functionality, like you said, from the diagnostics and the operational aspects built into the platform itself. So stay tuned as those start to evolve. And as we kind of shift focus, and like we said, we talk about these key use cases within the platform itself. We want to really help you understand what we're talking about when we're talking in the words of boosting operational efficiency. We want to show you what intelligent operations actually is and the advanced analytics, as Brock's going to demo with the operations dashboards. But we also want you to understand key areas around cost and capacity management, and also lifecycle management, the management of the various management appliances that you need to run and manage that infrastructure. So when we're speaking on intelligent operations management and advanced analytics, we want to make sure that you're getting that visibility into the application and the infrastructure that you need. We want to make sure you can see the full stack infrastructure visibility. Can you manage and monitor your public clouds and your private clouds in one unified, integrated, federated way? We want to make sure that you understand that you can monitor and manage your containers, VMs, also your private AI workloads, all in your standard vSphere enterprise that you're used to today. Also, all the key analytics, right? We just talked about Skyline Diagnostics being built in. We have the vSphere Security Hardening Guideline. We have AI analytics built in. We want you to understand how you can take all of that operational and optimization opportunity and really achieve faster time to resolution, ensuring that you get better performance and lower costs out of the platform.
Yeah, Jodi, a couple points there, if I could, before we move on. So there were three pillars in that previous slide. If you could go back to it, I think the first one was full stack visibility, right? And we give, you'll have to go back one. Yep, there you go. So out of the box, we're going to give you a bunch of vSphere constructs, right? Clusters, data centers, hosts, VMs, data stores, et cetera. But Jodi mentioned management packs earlier, and management packs do give you the ability to bring in things like storage and compute and network and app and database and all sorts of other things, such that you can move beyond the vSphere edge when you're troubleshooting, right? And we get all sorts of metrics and properties related to those things. We do a really nice job in operations of showing you that full stack via object relationship widgets, advanced object relationship widgets, the troubleshooting workbench, various things. And I'll show that in the demo as well. And to kind of double click on that middle pillar a little bit, you know, the VM monitoring will get out of the box with the vCenter or the vSphere adapter, but we do have a Kubernetes management pack that supports all several different distros that you can deploy as well for container monitoring. And all of that is really driven by the data analytics engine that is operations, right? It's doing not only capacity analytics, but costing analytics, as well as projections. And we use various constructs, one of which is called a dynamic thresholding concept, which allows you to create alerts and generate notifications when things become abnormal, right? Be that abnormally low or abnormally high. So there's really a lot being discussed in these three pillars, and I'll show that later on in my demo.
Yeah, I think it's a sweet spot with VCF Operations, all that it can do. So I'm excited to go through the demo.
Hey, Jodi.
Yeah.
We had somebody express a little bit of difficulty understanding, so I'm hoping if you don't mind slowing down just a little bit in your speech, it might help them be able to take all what you're saying in a little bit better.
Yeah, thank you. I get really excited, so I get to talking fast. So thank you for being honest and sharing that with me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So
And
yeah,
we just launched our second poll, so we're going to leave that to run for about a minute here, and then take a look at the results. So I'll check back with you in 60 seconds.
absolutely. So let's talk. We'll talk a little bit about cost and capacity. So understanding efficient capacity in your environment is very crucial. We want to make sure that we're understanding how to apply the optimal consolidation ratios, understand the proactive planning, also procurement, right? We have to talk about the cost drivers and the analysis around that as well. But we want to make sure that we're just maximizing the cost and really showing you the value and the cost avoidance with the tool itself. So talking about assessing capacity and addressing shortfalls, we understand how to leverage the AI-driven analytics. We want to understand that you have the visibility that you need across the environments, but also using capacity projections for scenarios like workloads that you might be bringing on-prem. If you have a merger or an acquisition, or you're bringing on new workloads and new projects, it really helps us understand this just by a visual within the dashboards themselves. And then talking about reclaiming capacity, we know that's not always an easy conversation with the organizations, especially lines of business and critical lines of business. But one of the other things we want you to really use is the tools within operations to identify unused resources, reclaim space, that's idle VMs, orphan VMs, other reclaimable space from a storage and compute perspective, and more. And I see that we have the poll. Oh, the poll just ended. There we go.
Polls up and rolling here. So we had about 59% voted. So 8.14 was about 7%. 8.16 was also 7%. 8.17 was 4%. A lot of heavy adopters here with 8.18 at 8%, and 74% have yet to use it. So again, that tracks pretty well with our previous poll, but it's good to get a little more granular.
Yeah, that's
good. Yeah, good poll there. And I really wanted to highlight some of the stuff that's new in 8.18 and 18.1, which came out as a part of VCF 5.2, because that was a really, really ops-heavy release. Lots of new function, lots of new feature, cool new analytics, various ways to kind of turn dials and adjust views, and I'll show some of that in 8.18. So if you are one of the customers running operations, I would encourage you to get to 8.18.1. That's the latest GA for operations. And then operations for logs is 8.18 hotfix 1. That's the latest GA. And once you have them integrated, you can really see the power of that integration through things like diagnostics and audit events and security advisories, and I'll show you that here in a bit. But 8.18 is kind of the target with all sorts of new function and feature there. So thanks, Jodi.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to tag onto that, if you need assistance with getting like the Express trial downloaded or any of those kind of areas of concern, we're putting on events with customers and partners where we help you kind of understand the installation and get that kind of trial download and walk through it. So if you're interested in that, why don't you send us a message, and we definitely would like to work with you and meet you at a live event coming soon to an area near you, hopefully. I just have a couple more slides and then we're going to jump into the actual demo. But again, I'm really just, the goal is to help highlight all of these key areas where the value of the adoption of the entire platform. So the operations, the log analytics, as well as the encompassing, vSphere engine that has, over 150 security features and capabilities embedded with the platform itself. So all of these key areas that we're hitting on today, we just want you to understand the value of the platform itself and all the different areas that you can look at when you're considering the adoption of the move from either plain vSphere and or vSphere and another product to vSphere Foundation and or to VMware Cloud Foundation. And another kind of slide to talk about is just how we can help reduce the IT maintenance windows. So faster time to operations after management. That's that pre-staging of ES6i imaging, downloads prior to maintenance. Also remediating multiple hosts in parallel. That's really a huge enhancement that we've made to the lifecycle management pieces of it. Also just enabling host and cluster configuration levels, understanding compliance and remediation with those levels, having security standards, really being able to copy that host configuration and make it repeatable process and scale. And then lastly, before I jump on, we'll talk about the VOA and then I hand it over. The upgrading to the vCenter instances with minimal disruption has been a huge feature that we've been wanting for a long time. I've been with the company for a little over 12 and a half years, and that's been a really highly requested feature. So if you're not aware of some of the features that we have out of the box right now with vSphere and or the uplift to VMware vSphere Foundation, please let us know and we can get you more documentation in key areas. So we realized it was a time for a change, and we knew that we have a lot of customers that are having those value conversations with the organizations and executives and leaders, and we really wanted to figure out how we could help you. So what we did is we kind of took a step back and looked at how and why we can help you. We really want the customer to achieve that intelligent private cloud operations management. So if you were familiar with the old vSphere Optimization Assessment, we kind of brought that back in a new way. We want to, our goal was to help and empower businesses to achieve intelligent private cloud operations management. We want the expertise and the SMEs in the field to help the customers understand the value of the adoption. And we want to leverage the products that we have within the platform. So leverage VCF operations and operations for logs. It's kind of like an SME in the box and part of the platform. So our goal is to help you understand what you can look at, where you can have value, and where you can look at cost avoidance. So why the transition, right? So previously vSphere optimization was an assessment where you could look at, it was that move from the physical data center to virtualization, really understanding the virtualization journey. What do the applications need to move to a virtualized environment? Those are the SQL databases, et cetera. So we really created that optimization assessment around that to look at that generalization moving from physical to virtual. And then it kind of evolved and it went to that cloud management component where you had a fully encompassed SDDC, software-defined data center, and that hybrid cloud, but also private cloud. How are you going to manage that? How could you scale it? How could you increase business agility with workloads that are in the cloud as well as on-prem? You had to be able to optimize IT efficiency. So we built management interface into the previous view realized and then kind of evolved that after. So now what we did is we kind of just went back to what we know and want to make sure that the customer can unlock the actual value with this change that they're not used to yet. So understanding the key use cases and the benefits of running and managing a private cloud infrastructure, understanding what cost savings are, ensuring compliance and security, looking at full capacity management holistically. And like Brock said, troubleshooting and performance are huge, right? We need NOC dashboards. We need to know what's going on with our infrastructure and be able to troubleshoot very efficiently. So we kind of brought the optimization assessment back. So the purpose of it, again, is to understand and help our customers transform the infrastructure by enhancing the operational efficiency, also ensuring that they have security for their optimized IT private cloud. Like I said, it's kind of like a health check or an SME in the box, helping you troubleshoot issues in a timely manner, turning those insights and dashboards into actionable steps for remediation, and much more. We want to help you understand how to develop a project timeline to streamline private cloud automation as well as delivery and eliminate bottlenecks as well. But you can demonstrate value with VCF operations within hours, of course, to minutes, hours to deploy, and then within a couple of weeks, you can get realistic detailed data about your infrastructure, which really helps you make and understand the use cases that you're trying to solve for, as well as looking at the value-driven results. So this is where I'm going to queue up Brock. So these 4 areas we really want to touch on today, really around boosting operational efficiency. What does it look like to supercharge your workload performance? The acceleration of innovation for DevOps, so being able to manage those multiple workloads and deliver those workloads, as well as manage those workloads. And of course, the elevation of security. So with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay,
Brock,
sounds good, Jodi. Let's see if I can share. Let me know. Let me know when you all can see you should be able to see an RE Operations UI at this point, can you?
Looks good.
Okay, all right, sounds good. So live lab here, VPN, all the things. So if we crash and burn, that's why. But this is RE Operations. You'll see top left is called VMware RE Operations at this point. We're kind of moving towards calling it VCF Operations. It's changed names a few times over the years, so I just refer to it as Operations, kind of future-proofs it when we change the name again. But if you're familiar with it, and it sounds like some of you are, Operations is really the data analytics engine, the observability platform, the monitoring tool, whatever you want to call it, that gives you visibility into vSphere, into your vSphere environment and beyond. There were a couple questions in the chat about management packs and visibility into storage and network and database, and we do have all of those things as well. But generally, Operations is a cluster, just OVA deployments. You can, start with a single node cluster and work your way all the way up to, continuous availability clusters, kind of mirrored across various sites. But the idea here is to be able to provide and apply data analytics to your vCenter data, right? Because maybe you're doing some of this today in vCenter, right? You're monitoring the big 4, CPU, memory, network, disk, potentially making some notifications on those things, emails, whatnot. But what we're doing with Operations is applying analytics to it, meaning we're going to make some projections. We're going to tell you potentially when you might run out of space. We'll be able to track data. By default, we keep data in Operations for 6 months, but you can keep it really as long as you want. You just have to throw some more storage at it. We also collect data on a 5-minute interval in Operations. You can turn that all the way down to 60 seconds if you want, or you can turn it up as well. So I'm going to go through kind of all of it here in Operations. We'll talk about security. We'll talk about how to improve performance on workloads. We'll talk about observability and the troubleshooting workbench. And I'll give you a bit of a harbor tour here of Operations. But just so y'all know, I am running the latest and greatest, which is 8.18.1. I would encourage you to do so because it adds a few things, and you really get these in 8.18. 8.18.1 came out maybe a month after 8.18 with a couple bug fixes and some CVEs being addressed. But for reference, I call all of these blades over on the left-hand side. So if I say blade, that's kind of what I'm talking about. But out of the box, the homepage is really where you're going to spend a lot of time, right? You're going to spend time on the overview tab. You're going to spend some time on the launchpad tab, which gives you what we used to call pillars of operations. So things like observability. What does capacity look like? Do you want to do some things around costing, be it VM costing or pricing or otherwise? And then we also have the ability to add 5 additional tabs into Operations. This used to be 3. In 8.18, this became 5, which is a win for me. We want really a tabbed kind of browser experience in Operations, and what it allows you to do is create sort of purpose-built dashboards, right? So, if it's an environment overview you might want, showing you the entire inventory of your environment, all of the alerts, various host versions, great, we can do that, right? So all of this data, all of the metrics, all the properties you're seeing are just being pulled from vCenter, right? And I'll show you how we do that here in a minute. And then these dashboards, they get a lot of attention in Operations. They're the pretty pictures. It's how we surface the data. It's how we publish the data back to users. It's how, you build things like troubleshooting dashboards or right sizing dashboards to say, hey, look, am I having a problem on, I don't know, this particular VM? Maybe. What does it look like? What is the health of it? Is it powered on? What host is it sitting on? What's the max CPU, potentially over the last 6 months, for example? We can use various kind of transformations in operations as well. And you get a little bit of this data with vCenter, but operations really kind of supercharges it. So my point here was that everything that you see on the homepage, Overview Launchpad out of the box, all of these others are kind of custom, purpose-built, and dashboards and operations. If you've been in here at all, you're not writing YAML or XML or anything. It's really just drag and drop technology. We can build one on the fly here as we go. And then you can share these out. So we used to have a site called VMware Code, which is now the Broadcom sample exchange, where you can get various things for operations like dashboards or views or supermetrics. And generally, they're just zip files or JSON files that you can import into your environment. And they'll show your data, right? They're just wrappers. So this is my lab. It's relatively small, but I'm kind of showing all of the data here. So that's the homepage, and we'll jump back into it and kind of work our way through here. But I want to show you how we're getting data, right? So how do we get it? What does it look like? They're just what we call integrations. I tend to refer to these as adapter instances. And what they look like is basically an adapter instance like this, which points to a target, right? So you'll see, for example, here's my vCenter. Here's a SQL server that I'm monitoring. Here's my integration to logs, which actually presents a lot of the data that you find here. And we'll go through diagnostics here in a little bit. But when you have vCenter or vCenters, generally you're going to have one adapter instance per vCenter, and you'll just jump in, right? So give it a name, give it a target. You can configure the physical location of that data center, and validate, and you're kind of off and running. Of course, we have documentation around the credentials that are necessary, but this allows you to get all your clusters, all your hosts, all your VMs, as well as things like vSAN, if you're running vSAN. And we also do some service discovery. And what that means is effectively services that are running on machines. So, I don't know, Apache or Tomcat or Exchange or what have you. And we can give you some base monitors or metrics around those services. So these are kind of the big three that you get with your vCenter adapters. And then we also capture vCenter events, right? So there's dozens, if not hundreds, of vCenter events, and we pull those into operations as well. And you can make alerts on them, generate notifications on them, and all sorts of ways that we can make notifications in operations. But this is how you get the data, right? So this is where all of the data comes in. The repository is where we hold what we call management packs or integrations, right? So the VRLI or logs analog of this would be a content pack. But so out of the box, vCenter integration, VCF integration, vSAN, kind of all the VMware stuff, right? And these are the old Blue Medora management packs or the VRTVS management packs for things like Postgres or Oracle or SQL or what have you. And then if you want, you can always install them. They're just pack files. They're available. They're all free out on the VMware Marketplace. Just download them and install them here, right? So maybe you want Dell, for example, has one called the Dell EMC ESA, Enterprise Storage Analytics. Maybe you want to monitor some storage with that. You would use that. Pure has one. NetApp has one. There's a ton of different management packs out on the marketplace, and I would encourage you to look at those, because what it allows you to do is layer in that context. So when you're troubleshooting something, you have a little bit more visibility. You can kind of move beyond the vSphere edge, for example, beyond a data store to the storage actually supporting it. And a lot of that is done in what we call the troubleshooting workbench. So if you're following along at home, if you go to operations and expand that twisty, you'll see all of the kind of pillars, if you will: alerts, troubleshooting, log analysis, etc. Alerts, this is just going to show all of the alerts in your environment, right? Are you violating some sort of security guideline? Is CPU running hot on a particular VM? Is SSH turned on somewhere where it shouldn't be? And these alerts are based on what we call symptoms or conditions, right? Those are kind of the triggering mechanism of the alert. And these alerts will just sit here in operations until you start making notifications on them. So if you want to generate an email, we can. All we need is an SMTP server. If you want to generate a webhook, say to Teams or to Slack, or generate an incident to ServiceNow, for example, we support all of those methodologies. Generally, most folks are using webhooks at this point, but I'll show you what some of those outbound plugins look like. So, we get alerts for every object type that's coming in, and then we use the workbench to kind of troubleshoot it. So let's just do a quick troubleshoot. So you can search for an object type. Maybe it's a virtual machine that is of interest, or an ESXi host, or what have you. And the troubleshooting workbench, this was introduced in maybe the 8.0 timeframe, something like that. And we used to build dashboards trying to kind of mimic this. None of them were as good as this. But what it allows us to do is say troubleshoot our VM, right? So VCF Ops, VCF 01, but it also gives us attached objects, right? What host is that VM? What data store is supporting it? What VM folder might it be in? And you can kind of expand that view if you want via that custom tab up top. And then over on the right-hand side, you'll have potential evidence, alerts, metrics, and logs for that particular object. And we'll run through this, but I want to show you this custom view first. So the custom view is effectively an advanced object relationship view. That's a widget within operations that we use to build dashboards. And what it allows you to do is say, here's our target VM that we were troubleshooting. And here are all of the objects attached to it and their health, right? So here's one of its DPGs. Here's the host it's actually sitting on. I'm just hovering over these objects to show you. Here's a resource pool. Here's the VM folder that VM is actually in. And then down below, I'm running vSAN. So down below, you can see the various vSAN disk groups that I have configured. You see the little green circle there? It means they're healthy. It means they don't have any alerts that are affecting health against them. Here are the cache disks in those groups. So the advanced object relationship widget is one of the most powerful in that you get to what we call walk the tree. You get to go tip to tail, top to bottom, to see what might be affecting a VM, or potentially a VM affecting something else. Generally, I look through these trying to find red circles, right? So what are those alerts? What's the actual alert on this guy? Well, it's this VM is violating a bunch of CIS and some vSphere security configuration guidelines. So security related things, right? Which I'll show here in a bit as well. But should we be looking at, CPU or memory or any sort of issues, those would show as well. So very important to kind of look at that selected scope. You can go as narrow or as wide as you want, and that will also affect kind of what you see on the right-hand side. So let's talk about these tabs a little bit. Potential evidence kind of gives us, the views into, looks like we lost our object. Let's have a look back there.
You got to thank the demo gods for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one of those things, right? As my dog barks. Okay, so all the objects are back. Here are my events, property changes, and anomalous metrics. So these are events, right? Be it a vCenter event or a DRS related event, something that's happened either on that VM or on one of its parents, or child objects. Of course, you can adjust the time range, right? So say I want to go out to 24 hours or 7 days, I certainly can, and you're going to get more events. Property changes, right? In this case, my certificate expiration, of course, went down. Nothing terribly interesting, but it was, in fact, a property change. Same sort of thing for anomalous metrics, because these are interesting in that they're anomalous behavior, right? Something that we think is abnormal that could potentially be leading to some sort of problem. Now, the alerts tab, for me, is the most interesting in that it shows all of the alerts for the objects that I'm looking at, right? So if it's just the the VM that you're looking at, potentially you're just going to kind of scale this all the way back down and say, here are all my alerts on that VM. Interesting. CPU is high on one of them. Okay. The symptoms tab and the events tab give you a little bit more information in that the symptoms are the triggering mechanism for alerts. So it's always interesting to see what symptoms are active as well. You'll notice there's a little filter up here that you can filter on. And keep in mind, whenever you don't see some information here, sometimes that filter is engaged and you just maybe forgot about it. So you can clear it out just by Xing it. But it's interesting to know all the alerts, all the symptoms, all the events, as well as all the logs, which we bring in through ARIA operations for logs, configured to hit your vCenters, and then all of your ESXi hosts are forwarding syslog. But the metrics, there's dozens, if not hundreds or thousands for various objects. But this allows you to say, if you're troubleshooting, I don't know, some sort of CPU issue on a VM, you want to know what that looks like, what the behavior is, right? And you can scale that out. I don't know, let's just look at the last 7 days, for example, to see, hey, have I had a spike? Have I not had a spike? What's going on in terms of, peers? Are there any peers that are experiencing this same sort of behavior? No, in this case. Do I want to generate an alert definition based on CPU? You can do that here, right? So, all we would do is say, here's my alert. It's against this particular metric. Maybe I want to alert on something greater than 90%. I update, and now I have an alert showing any CPU on a VM that's greater than 90%. Those alerts, of course, are just going to sit here until we start making notifications on them. But the thing that I most wanted to highlight here is the workbench gives you kind of a canvas on which you can troubleshoot, right? It's your workbench you can sit at to see what's problematic with a VM or a host or a cluster or what have you. And you can do a little bit of that up top. So you probably noticed the search bar at the top, and that search bar allows us, I think of it as a Google-like type search. Hopefully ChatGPT type AI engine someday, but it allows you to look for any object, any metric. You can do metric comparisons as well, but I'm just going to go ahead and grab one. And anytime you grab an object, be it a vSphere object or otherwise, it'll take you into a similar page, kind of providing an inventory as well as a summary of that object, right? So here's my VM. Is it
Brock, I'm
powered
just
on?
going
What
to
else?
jump in because we just ran that poll. Are you using ARIA operations alerts and notifications? And it looks like
Yeah,
no
and
at 55%, not yet, would like to start 28%, emailing already 8%, and emailing
nice.
instant messaging and more for 9%. So that's good to know.
Awesome. Yeah, good. I'd love to hear that because alerts are great, right? But most often folks aren't just sitting in here watching the alerts tab, right? Someone needs to either get an email on it, an instant message via a webhook, or a ServiceNow incident. We also support events and alerts in ServiceNow as well. So that's great, and I'll kind of show you how to do that here in a second. But this summary page for every object will show you, it gives you some data, give you some metadata. Do I have any alerts on that particular object? So in this case, yes, I do. Again, I'm violating a bunch of CIS guidelines and vSphere security guidelines. But keep in mind, whenever you see an object, be it a VM or even a vCenter, for example. So I'm just kind of walking the tree over here to jump to my vCenter to say, hey, what does my vCenter look like? How many alerts do I have? How many clusters, hosts, data stores, various objects and metrics? And there are so many here that we try to provide a summary on the summary page for each object type, be it a vCenter, a VM, or otherwise. So, I mean, that's a lot about troubleshooting and observability, but the key is get operations deployed. It's just an OVA deployment. It can be as small as you want. I think we offer it in a 2x4 all the way up to a, 32 by 128 or something. Wonderful sizing guides that are very detailed in terms of deployment. So you can start with a single node. You can go all the way out to 12 or 16 nodes. We've increased that recently. Support HA, support CA, and start getting the data. because the data is really what matters. And the data is most of what we're bringing into diagnostics. So I highlight diagnostics, and forgive me, I don't have any findings or advisories in my lab because it's up to date, but diagnostics is really the replacement for Skyline. So the look and feel is even a little bit like Skyline. So you will have findings and you will have security advisories, or likely. I don't in my lab because I'm up to date, but this is where you'll see things like VMSAs, and they will point you to related KBs that fix those problems, log signatures, and the like. This is really a part of the Diag management pack, which we are going to put on a monthly release schedule to update these. So when new VMSAs come out, we can update them at least on a monthly cadence. I'm hoping for quicker than that in VCF 9. We'll see what happens. We also bring certificates in to operations, right? So this is really kind of whatever you want to call it, your first pane, your single pane, the brains of the operation. We're trying to bring certificates, metrics, properties, events, logs, all of the signals into operations so you can run your environment, be it VVF or VCF. But it lists all of your vCenter certs, your ARIA certs. Should you be running NSX, it would list NSX manager certs. Are they active? Are they not active? When are they going to expire? And we can create alert symptom combinations on these to warn you, right? We'll give you a 90-day warning or a 60-day warning, a 30-day warning, and the like, such that you never have another cert expire without your knowledge. I'm sure you're running some scripts to do that today. It's actually a pretty cool solution that one of our PS engineers developed that allows you to do cert checking with Telegraph and OpenSSL commands. But this is pretty robust, right? There is not a lot we needed to do here. We get certs for free in diagnostics. And then the second and third rows here are really just, are you seeing any problems with vCenters or ESXi hosts or vMotions, or have you had any snaps fail, for example? So if you go into your vCenter appliances, forgive me, this is my lab, you'll have all of your vCenters listed here, and then you'll have all of your vCenter services. There's 35, 36 different services listed that will show as started or healthy or unhealthy or what have you. Same sort of thing for ESXi hosts, right? Do I have any hosts that are unresponsive? Do I have any that are in maintenance mode, or any that are powered off? As well as for snaps. And there's lots of cool stuff that we can do with snaps, by the way, in Automation Central. And I don't know that we'll have time to get to it, but explore diagnostics if you're at 818. I think the juice here is worth the squeeze. If you're not at 818 yet, get there just for diagnostics alone. It gives you other things like configuration drift and audit events as well. But just, Jodi, to touch on some of the security stuff quickly, compliance, we have support for, we have a vSphere security configuration guide, vSAN, as well as NSX. And then we have a bunch of regulatory benchmarks, right? DISA, FISMA, HIPAA, ISO, CIS, PCI. You can enable all of these. They're basically alerts and symptom combinations around those guidelines or around those benchmarks. You can create your own compliance pack if you want as well. And those you can just add in via add custom compliance. And I know we're coming up on time, and I do want to leave some time for questions and comments at the end. But the capacity engine, the costing engine, give you visibility into, how much time do I have left, say, in a particular cluster or in a particular data center? Am I running out of CPU? Am I running out of memory? Am I running out of disk? And we'll make recommendations on when to buy, what to buy, and how much more. We also have a right sizing engine, right? So by right sizing, I'm talking about right sizing VMs, which I'm sure everybody on the call knows. Almost every VM in your environment is probably not running at 100%. How do we right size those, and what are the recommendations being made? So operations will look at your VMs, look at CPU usage, memory usage, and say, look, if you're running a 16 by 64 and you're not using any of that capacity, we're going to recommend that you downsize. And there are dials that we can turn to make that conservative, to make it aggressive, or we can just ignore them, right? I get it. Some vendors say, look, we need a certain amount of CPU and memory, and we won't support it otherwise. Fine, we can just ignore those. And the ability to explore oversized and undersized VMs we have various dashboards that give us a ton of visibility behind that. So here's one of them, for example. And what I mean by that is these are all just VMs, left-hand side. And what I've done over on the right-hand side is shown the vCPU, shown how much memory we have, and then give you how much we've used as well as the max consumption, say over the last 6 months or 3 months or 1 month, whatever, you can configure that. And this allows you to have those conversations with users to say, look, you may have, a 4x16 box, but you haven't used over 10% in the last year. We're going to downsize you, and here's why. Who knows? Maybe, the reduction of vCPU brings their CPU ready time down and increases their performance. But explore capacity, explore cost. The costing engine is rich. Generally, we're going to give you some MSRP pricing around costing. You have the ability to adjust that via cost drivers. And then we assign those costs, kind of unit-based prices to CPU and memory, and then give you a cost for each VM, right? And when you're asking for capacity back or trying to do some right sizing, it's always important to know what something costs. And the conversation might go a little bit easier if you're telling somebody, well, maybe this is their VM and they're paying $250 a month for it because it's vastly oversized. And then finally, Automation Central is not a newer feature. I want to say it came out in
Hey,
4-ish
Brock, we got a really
timeframe.
good
But
question. I thought it
Automation
great.
Central, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to throw it in there. I thought it'd be a good one to answer live. Can we integrate third-party
Yeah.
software? Can we integrate third-party software, synthetic hardware, get monitored by ARIA Ops, or is it just meant for vSphere products? And that kind of leans into that management pack
No.
conversation. So wanted to
Yeah,
bring
no. We can definitely move beyond vSphere, right? So if you go into integrations, you go to repository, these are those that come out of the box, right? So of course it's going to be VMware focused, but should you want to add, oh gosh, what's one that I added recently? Postgres or Oracle or SQL Server or various. I'm just going to go ahead and add it. These are just pack files, and they have management packs for storage, for compute, right? UCS, ProLiant, and PowerEdge, Xclarity, Lenovo, etc. You just add the pack files in here. You start pulling that data from whatever that target is, be it a management plane or a service processor itself, bring it back, and then we'll actually make those relationships to the hardware, right? So say, for example, you're running, I don't know, UCS gear. We'll show you the hosts and the blades they actually sit on. So yes, we can grab non-vSphere data, bring it into operations, alert on it, project on it, all sorts of cool stuff. Good question. Thank you, Jodi. Are there others? I think we have, I don't know 5 minutes left here. I don't want to go right up to the end. I would like to answer some questions. I mean, there's so much more that we can show in
I know I was going to say
operations.
we probably could spend a whole other hour.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, generally when we do these, they're 4-hour workshops, but if you have entitlement for operations today, deploy it. Just spin up a single node, configure your vCenter connections, and start looking at the data. Because once you start seeing the data, I'm certain that something will catch your eye, right? That'll surprise you and say, "Ooh, I should really be alerting on that," or taking some proactive measure to prevent this other problem from happening. And you'll spend a lot of time within operations, within the workbench. Of course, the integration with logs is there. By the way, we haven't even touched on logs yet. So VRLI or ARIA Operations for logs, which, as you know, collects data from vCenter, all the advanced alarms and IDs, but also collects syslog from the ESXi hosts. So once all of that data is coming in, then we can do correlation. We provide, it's required, by the way, for diagnostics, so you will need that. And now you have all of your signals. You have your metrics, you have your properties, you have your events, and your logs in a single place. And
And
this really can be your hub for your environment. Go ahead.
we've actually got a poll involving ARIA operations for logs.
Oh, nice.
Short and sweet, yeah. So we'll pause here for a second and
okay. So while we kind of sit on that poll, I don't think they see the screen share when we're polling. Mark, Jodi, did I miss anything? Anything you want to cover? I mean, this is a lot, really. It's, we could do 4 hours, 8 hours on this. A couple things I would point to. One is the Broadcom sample exchange. Two is, both Jodi and I and others share a lot around operations and operations for logs. I have a blog that I really blog about customer use cases kind of all day, every day. Explore those things, because the more you see in operations, the more familiar you're going to be with your environment. All sorts of use cases here. We just checked off, what, 3 or 4 of them today?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All righty, and it looks like we've got some good results on the poll here. So let's take a look at those.
All right, so good to see. Just for vCenter and ASICs, I host at 21%.
Yeah.
vCenter host
Yeah.
agent another syslog. That's a good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Good
for
numbers.
sure. I'm really encouraged by that last one, 13%, because when we have VRLI agents and other syslog, we're really kind of enriching that data. And for those that are using VRLI agents, 818 introduced a new construct called the cloud proxy for log forwarding. What that allows you to do is potentially do log forwarding without a dedicated forwarding cluster. So explore that. All sorts of blogs, all sorts of content out there. I have stopped sharing at this point, Anders, as I know we're at time.
Okay. And just taking a quick look through the Q&A here. Looks like we've got a ton answered. I haven't brought any to the surface. I don't know if anybody has any.
There's one I'm reading. So one from James Adams: Will Horizon related management packs remain available in operations and logs? So yes, the management pack for Horizon, or MP4H, is a management pack going forward. I don't know exactly if we're supporting it or if Omnissa is, but MP4H is still a thing, and it will be used going forward to monitor Horizon.
Yeah, this is great interaction today. Thank you for being so interactive. Hopefully, we are getting the message across around the value of the adoption of ops and ops for logs, and have answered any questions you may have come to the session with today.
There was a few, if we have a couple minutes, there was a few questions on the diagnostic tab, maybe not functioning correctly. So I brought up in the Q&A that we need ops for logs. So I don't know if we want to touch on that at all, about how that works. And
we definitely do. So I'll just share out again. Where are we? Let me know when you can see my screen. Can you see it?
Looks good.
Okay, perfect. So I just don't have any findings in my lab. You definitely do need the integration. So I just don't have any findings. You likely will, so you won't see zeros here. That's not something that is broken. I just don't have any findings. You do need this integration for diagnostics to work. This one right here. So if you have operations up and running and you don't have your VRLI integration or your RA operations for logs adapter up and running, this is what you need. So this brings in the logs, the audit events, and allows us to apply signatures to them, explore VMSAs, etc. So you may not see like vMotion failures, potentially workload provisioning failures. Logs, the logs integration is a requirement, so you will need that. If you run into, so in the vCenter servers, if you run into this problem, so you'll have all your vCenters here, and then you should have all your vCenter services here, 35, 36 of them. It's a configuration issue. Go to my blog, look at my diagnostics blog. I call it out. It's just still an issue in my lab. Your adapter instance credential needs to be a part of the, I think it's configuration.administration group in vCenter. That's why I don't see services here. But the main point is you need your operations for logs integration to see information here.
Alrighty, folks.
Awesome.
Do we have any more questions outstanding?
Kind of looking through the questions. I feel like they've all been answered.
Yeah, we should actually bring you guys back for maybe a 3-hour session at some point, because we've got so much content so fast.
Yeah.
definitely be good to get you back at least for another touchback here in the near future. And I know I think we got a couple more sessions coming up before the end of the year. We are going to pause out for Explorer just because both our presenters and all of our customers in the EMEA are going to be out doing that, but we'll pick up shortly thereafter. So, all righty. Well, I think we're really good. Thanks, folks, for coming in today, and we appreciate all of our guests and customers who are out in the audience. Thank you for showing up.